More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back, everybody. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Just like Bob Schmidt said, time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associate Studios is 517-609-919-9200. A lot of baseball talk today with the trade deadline. I was also at Eagles practice today, so we've done a lot of Eagles talk. But now it's time to talk some New York Football Giants, and no one better to do it with than the man that has been covering the team for a long time at the New York Post, and that is Paul Schwartz. Paul, thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
I'm good, Zach. The NFL trading deadline is not quite as active as the baseball trading deadline, is it?
No doubt about that. Our show starts at 4, and the deadline's at 4, and I was refreshing Twitter and going crazy trying to get the latest news on the Mets, Yankees, and Phillies, so it was a wild day.
Well, when I saw that the Mets traded Antonio Bastardo for Jonathan Neese, I had to refresh and said, is this the beginning of August, or is it April 1st?
And they also
that was a strange one.
Yeah, basically they traded Bastardo for Neil Walker, if you look at it, because originally the Mets traded Neese for Neil Walker, and Neese had all those comments out the door. And they also got back Kelly Johnson last year. They get a big bat at the deadline. You had the trade that you thought was originally today with Jay Bruce, and it didn't go through, and then they end up getting Jay Bruce. So a lot of similarities to last year, and as a Mets fan, I just hope they're back in the World Series, but I'm not quite confident in this team.
Well, one thing, and this, I'm not a Mets expert, obviously, but if you would have listed about 150 players that I thought the Mets would not get back, Jonathan Neese would be very high on that list.
You're exactly right as we're talking to Paul Schwartz. So let's do what you do best and talk a little Giants. Just double, triple, and quadrupling checking. Everything okay with Odell Beckham?
Well, yes, I believe it is. We'll see tomorrow. The Giants were off today. No players. They're off, so it worked out perfectly for Odell. He didn't have to miss anything. I have a feeling if they practiced today, he might have had to miss the practice. He looked pretty sore yesterday. Look. When your franchise player goes down and gets back up and goes back down, the trainers all run over to him. Like I wrote and like everyone said, everyone holds their breath and you wait to see what happens. But this whole cleated thing, he got a little laceration. He'll be fine. Will he practice tomorrow? My bet would be yes. If he doesn't, not a big deal. He'll practice the next day. So crisis averted.
Okay, that's good news for Giant fans. Early impressions so far with Ben McAdoo?
Well, it's interesting. We knew Ben. He was the offensive coordinator the last 2 years, so it's not this getting to know you period for the players and the media. We're getting to see him in a little bit of a different light. He's not the life of the party. He's pretty businesslike. I thought the last 2 years he was a very smart guy, and I think he's seeing him more and speaking to him a little more as the head coach, I do think he's very smart, very in tune. The guy's 39 years old, and Tom Coughlin at the end of this month turns 70. Tom Coughlin was not outdated, but he was going to be 70, and this is a guy who just turned 39, so he has a younger mindset. He is reaching out even more to this so-called millennial generation. Tom Coughlin did certainly do that. McAdoo's doing it more. So first impressions, I think he's smart. He's certainly organized. And look, as I've told people, we can say all we want about Ben McAdoo, but in the third quarter of the September 11th game in Dallas, when it's 4th and 3, and they have to decide whether to punt or to go for it, we're going to find out more than at that point we'll find out more than we ever know now about what Ben McAdoo brings to the table.
You're exactly right, because the situation I was at today in Philadelphia was everyone's happy that Chip Kelly's out, and you have a guy that Doug Peterson is coming back and he's implementing that old Andy Reid kind of style of coaching, and he's more of a player's coach. And with the Giants, everyone could write and talk about what they think Ben McAdoo can do, but with both of those coaches, it really is an unknown period, and we won't know what they're made out of. Not even, some play calls this year, but I think you have to give both these guys a year or two. Clearly, the Eagles' situation's a little bit different than the Giants, and anyone could win this NFC East, but I would have to say the Giants, my expectations for the Giants, probably 9-10 wins, and they should win the NFC East with that.
Look, if it's not all wine and roses after 4 days of training camp, you got a big problem. Unless you have major injuries, everyone is bigger, stronger, and faster, right? All the newcomers, all the guys they signed, Love the new organization. Love the feel. Say that they fit into this offensive or defensive scheme so well. We see it every year. This is when everyone's optimism is supposed to be running rampant. But there is, having said that, I think there is a genuine optimism around this team. The defensive imports, for so much money, have to make the defense better. The defense was so bad, they have to be better. By default, they will be better. Now it's just, from 32, are they going to go up to 22 or 18 or 9? We'll see about that. This certainly has the makings of a double-digit win team, and as we know in the NFC nowadays, double digits can get you the division title.
And you're right. It can't get any worse. And it's funny. You're the second guest to talk about all the roses in the first few days of training camp on our show today. But with the Giants' defense last year, 420 yards per game, a little bit more than that, 442 total points allowed. And I do believe this defense will improve because you can't get any worse. And Reese spent a plethora of money in the offseason. But do you think Vernon's going to be worth that big contract, the lucrative contract that they gave him?
Well, here's the interesting thing, Zach. At this point last year, right, Jason Pierre-Paul was not here, right? He was back in Florida, rehabbing, and really healing with the terrible right hand injury. At this point last year, Jonathan Hankins was their best defensive lineman. Okay? Right now, he is their fourth best defensive lineman.
Wow.
So that's a way to look at it. Do I think Olivier Vernon is worth $85 million? I would say probably not. But you know what? It's not my money. I didn't go spend it.
Fair point.
It's the Giants' money, and they had the money. That's what happens in the cap. Certain years you have it, certain years you don't. The cap went up. The Giants had the money. The Giants are not going to not spend it. They spent it. Now you can debate whether Olivier Vernon and Janoris Jenkins and Snacks Harrison for almost $200 million was money well spent. It was certainly overpaying. Yes, it was overpaying, but if those guys are good players, it doesn't matter. Olivier Vernon is a good player. And the best thing about these guys, Zach, is they're all young. They're all in their mid-20s. They're all healthy, and they're all should be on the way up. The Giants did not invest all this money on guys 28, 29, 30 who are kind of, you want to squeeze a few more years out of them. Olivier Vernon, this should be entering the peak of his career. So, I think it was a very good signing.
Paul Schwartz joins us right now from the New York Post. So we could talk all we want about the defense, the offense. You always know the big name is the connection of an Eli Manning to an Odell Beckham Jr., but they're going to need that offensive line to block, especially that right side of the offensive line. I think that's going to be what makes or breaks this Giants season. I know it's only August 1st, but that right side of the offensive line, they have to get a lot more positive out of negative out of them.
Well, you want me to let you in on a little secret?
Yes.
This can be a exclusive for the Zach Gelb show, okay? The jersey.
Breaking news. Here we go.
The jersey. I will be writing about that in the New York Post tomorrow and nypost.com with a feature on Marshall Newhouse, who is, I think most Giant fans feel, a guy who should have been replaced at right tackle. I talk to a lot of Giant fans either on social media or just seeing around, and people like Eric Flowers. They really like Weston Richburg. They like Justin Pugh. I think they do not like John Jerry at right tackle, but but they can accept him as the fifth worst lineman on the team, but they do not like Marshall Newhouse. I don't think Marshall Newhouse is as bad as people think. He's smart. He's pretty tough. He's a technician. He's not a road grader. But, Jerry Reese said something interesting yesterday. He said, everyone makes a big deal about our offensive line. You cannot have 5 Pro Bowlers. Nobody does. And he said, every year I study which offensive lines made the Super Bowl. And he said, I studied the 2 teams that made the Super Bowl last year, which is obviously the Broncos and the Panthers, and he said, I think we stack up with them offensive line-wise. Let's face it, they have 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick on the line. So the right side is going to be problematic, and I do agree with you. Let's face it, Eli makes offensive lines looks better. He was sacked 27 times last year, and a lot of that is attributed to the fact that he's smart. He gets the line in the right protection package, and he gets rid of the ball quickly. I think the line will be serviceable, maybe better than that. I expect a big upgrade from Eric Flowers this year, and if the right side can at least hold up, the offense will be in pretty good shape.
I can't wait to read that column tomorrow in the New York Post. And I also read your article on Victor Cruz, and the Giants have been cautious with him so far. How has he been looking, though, so far, and what are your expectations for him? I know a lot depends on his health, but what are your expectations this year for Salsa Victor Cruz?
10, 15 minutes in, and we finally get to Victor Cruz?
Yeah.
Well, I know.
Over-under.
We have to deal with Odell. I know that. But, Victor Cruz after the offensive line, that means you are a true football guy, right? You care about the stuff in the trenches and not just the highlight stuff.
If you saw the size of me, you would see why I care about the guys in the trenches.
Yeah, you need some protection, right?
I was an offensive lineman in high school, so.
Wow, so I'm surprised the offensive line question wasn't the first thing.
Yeah, right?
You could have said, you know what, Odell Beckham and Eli and Cruz, none of it matters unless the guys block up front.
You're right.
That's the only thing that matters.
It's one in the trenches, baby.
Yeah. Well, Victor Cruz, all I can say is so far so good. Now, at this point last year, we were saying so far so good, and then, everyone thought he was dehydrated, and he had a little calf strain, and we all know, it all went to hell after that. Don't forget, he's another year removed from that patella tendon surgery, so that's good. That is really healed. I think it's going to work out. I really do. I think he's healthy. He looks like to be in great shape. He's got a great attitude. They're going to be smart with him. Yesterday they could have put him in some of those team periods, and they didn't. And we all said, well, geez, is this a setback? And Ben McAdoo said, no, we're going to give him a little and we're going to take a little. We're going to give and we're going to take. It's not going to be a steady uphill climb. There's no reason to do that with Victor Cruz, right? There's no reason to rush anything. All that matters at this point is if September 11th in Dallas, can he be? He doesn't have to be at his best. Can he be on the field? Can he be running routes, whether he's in the slot, whether he's the third guy, the second guy? Get him maintained physically for the start of the season and onward, throughout the season. Look, we saw 2 years ago, Odell Beckham didn't play in the first 4 games, and he went to have a mega year and was the Rookie of the Year. So this is a marathon. We know that. I think Victor Cruz so far looks really good. But as Jerry Reese said yesterday, they have to see him in a game, let it loose, get a hit, make a play, catch the ball, yards after the catch, all that stuff. That's to come. That's what the summer's all about.
Before we let you run, Paul Schwartz, I'm not privy to the way that the Giants interact with fans for training camp, but in Philadelphia over the weekend, last year you had 43,000 fans attend the first open practice, and this year only 18,276. Have there been a lot of fans at Giants training camp? How does that process work?
Well, it doesn't work well, to tell you the truth. First of all, they've had 3 open practices, and 2 of them have the media, public has not been allowed in because it's rained. So they've had 3, and they had to cancel the practice. They canceled the practice to the public, and everyone went into the field house. Once it goes inside, fans are not allowed in. The Giants practiced for 16 years at the University of Albany, and they drew very big fans. They will not draw 43,000 fans all summer, put it that way.
Wow.
There's only 11 open practices. Now there's only 9 open, so I guess there's 8 more. They get a couple of thousand, maybe for when Odell's signing, that kind of thing. Their facility is not conducive to that kind of crowd. They upgraded their facility this year as far as the bleachers are now covered. They're seats instead of bleachers, which is good. But, 2,000-3,000 will be the most. It's not a big thing. New York, there's a lot going on. It's not a great place to watch them practice. Sometimes they're on a far field. They do not ever have an open practice in MetLife Stadium. If they did that, they'd get a lot of people, but they don't have that. So, once they moved out of the college feel of this and they moved back to their facility, the Giants basically said it is about us getting ready for camp and for the season, and it is really not about this great interaction with the public.
Yeah.
They didn't say that, but that's what it is.
Yeah, let me just clarify, too. That 43,000 from last year and the 18,000 plus this year was at Lincoln Financial Field, and the Eagles, they do practice at the NovaCare Complex, which is not Lincoln Financial Field, but which is only about a block or 2 away. But Paul Schwartz, this was a whole lot of fun today. Thanks so much, and I'm sure we'll talk to you during the football season when we start to get games that are played and when Doug Peterson and also Ben McAdoo have to make some big-time decisions. But we appreciate it, my friend.
Okay, Zach, anytime.
Thanks so much. There is Paul Schwartz joining us from the New York Post.